What if I told you that parenting doesn't have to be about punishments, timeouts, or power struggles? That there's a way to guide your child with love, connection, and mutual respect. My guest today, my best friend, former teacher, homeschool mom, and parenting wisdom guru, coaches me through my struggles as a new mom. And trust me, if you're raising little ones, you need to hear this. She talks about the wisdom, the statistics, psychology of children and child rearing, and it's gonna blow your mind. Get ready to rethink everything you thought you knew about discipline. This episode is episode 60, Punishment Free Parenting, Lydia's Guide to Healthy Parenting. Welcome to Healing with Haley. I'm your coach, Haley Kirk. On this podcast, we dive into ways to heal, embrace, and truly love our lives. Here's my belief. So much of our suffering comes from what we believe. I'm here to help you understand your mind and question those thoughts to start your healing journey. Ready to get started? Let's go. Welcome, you guys. I have my amazing BFF forever, Lydia. I always want to say
Nice.
money, but it's Russell.
It's still money. It's still money. It's my middle name now. Money.
So, hi, your podcast episode was so successful. It was like the top five performing, and people loved it and were raving about it. So, I think it would be so amazing to have you on here again. And now you are. So, thank you for joining us.
Yay. Oh, thank you. I appreciate the support and love that people were enjoying what they heard and it resonated with them. So I'm excited to be back. Thanks for having me.
Yes. And I feel like I get the most benefit. So, I get the personal coaching from the greats, the GOAT. Um, so we were before the episode is recording, we were kind of talking about this book that I have been reading called Punishment Free Parenting. Um, and I just how much I'm learning, and it's really transforming the way I parent my son and how I want to parent him in the future. And the author is John Fogel, and the rest of the subtitle says the brain-based way to raise kids without raising your voice, which I feel like every parent can empathize and relate with because we've all freaking done it. We've like raised our voice at our kids, lashed out, angered, and let our emotions get the better of us. And I feel like it's so easy to just be like, oh, I'm a horrible parent, or oh, I'm the worst. And so I think what I think it's important to start with empathy when it comes to like the topic of parenting, because I feel like it's so easy to just like hate ourselves into oblivion. Like, so what would you say to start us off, Lydia, in regards to like what if a parent is like listening to this and is just kind of looking for that like light at the end of the tunnel or that reassurance?
Mhm.
What would you say?
Yes, I love this. First off, I would just want to empathize. Like all of us parents, we have those moments where we are triggered ourselves. And that trigger comes from a place of what we were safe to do as children, what our parents were triggered by that made it so our reaction now in the future with our children is that that's not a safe thing that my child is doing. So then I react and I yell and I'm triggered by it. However, the reality is that we all make mistakes and we can learn from them. And when we model that for our kids, that's going to benefit them in the long run. So as long as we're, repairing and we realize that kids are so malleable and we can improve and fix what mistakes we've made, that's all that really matters, as long as and it's proven that if you're not making those mistakes and repairing with your kids, that isn't as beneficial as if you were making no mistakes. So for our kids to see mistakes, it's really helpful for them.
Oh my God. Okay. I'm gonna say what you just said to make sure I'm understanding.
Okay.
It is good for our kids to make mistakes and maybe even yell and lash out.
Yeah, it's good for them to see that as long as we are repairing with them. You actually create a stronger bond. Obviously, we do not want to traumatize our children,
Right.
but I'm just saying it's good for our children to see normal human tendencies and mistakes. And then when we're repairing them, that provides more of an opportunity to build a stronger relationship. And then,
Oh my God, I remember reading that in the book. Yeah.
yeah.
It's and talk about repair. What does that look like?
Okay, for example, with my daughter, she's 6 years old. And say she was, this is a made up example, but say she was whistling so loud to the point, and I'm like trying to do something, and then I get super triggered by the loudness, and I say, quit it, stop, Holland. And I like react.
Mhm,
Okay.
mhm.
Instead of
I've done that a
being,
million times. Okay.
yeah, yeah, okay. So instead of being like prideful in that state and not I'm trying to think of the best way to say this. And instead of just leaving it as that, you would go back and you'd acknowledge how your child might be feeling. You'd say, Holland, this is what you heard earlier. I reacted. That wasn't okay how I reacted. I yelled. That's not how I want to be treating you. And I know that's not how you want to be treated. I'm so
I'm
sorry
literally
about
tearing up right now, like feeling the inner child in me. Ah.
that. Yeah. And we all want to be talked to that way. So honestly, if we just empathize with our children, they're just little people. They just want to be
Yeah.
talked to how we do.
I love, and I'm so lucky to have you and my other really good friend Taylor, because you guys, I got to see you guys parent, and then like you guys tell me you're like, I wish I did this, I wish I did that. I'm like, I'm just gonna do what they said because I love them and their lives are amazing. I love that you said that because I really try to do that for my 2-year old Israel
hmm
because I love tell me your thoughts on this. I love saying yes as much as possible and like respecting him as kind of like an adult. Like I'm like, you're just a little adult in a little
Yeah.
body. And I want to I try to talk to him as um like at his level, but as an adult, like with the respect. There's like respect there, there's humor, there's playfulness. Um, I don't know. What are your thoughts on that?
Oh, yes. That's the best that we can do for them. It's it's obviously understandable when we do like the baby talk or whatever.
Right. Oh, yeah.
But honestly, the best thing we can do for their prefrontal cortex is to treat them as we would speak to one another. My daughter comes out with this vocabulary that I'm just like shocked because I didn't think I taught her this, but it's because, like all parents, we're just talking to them normally. We're just including them in conversation. And obviously, their level will come to where it needs to be slowly and gradually. And they'll grasp things that we never thought they would because we're giving them that challenge and giving them the opportunity to step up to what we're talking to them with, like to get onto
Mm,
that level.
yeah. Oh, that's so good. Okay. Sorry. Side tangent. So go back to repair. So you said as long as your so your tantrum, the adult's tantrum happens,
hmm hmm
and then you immediately go to them and say, I'm sorry I did what I did. How did that make you feel? What are kind of like the steps?
Yeah. First, I would, depending on the state of the child, I would acknowledge their feelings first. I would go
Okay.
over and just because you're modeling, healthy human behavior by being aware, and that's how your child can develop empathy as well. So you go
Hmm.
over to them and you say, I see you're really sad. And I know that you're sad because so and so. I did I did this thing. So acknowledge their feelings first, give them an opportunity to share those feelings, and then apologize for it. That way you can hear where they're coming from and they feel like you're a safe place for them to tell you. And you're setting up different situations for their whole entire youth. Because one day when they're 15 and something like that happens, they're not worried to tell mom. They're totally prepared previously by these different situations you've already had that you're a safe place for them. So they're going to open up easier.
And this is so interesting. I just finished reading this chapter of the book. I'm still not all the way in, and you said that. So what he was talking about, which I thought was nuts, he has this acronym called WRAP when it comes to initiating discipline. And for A, it stands for associated. And then he says, is the logical consequence that you're deploying associated with the behavior that you're trying
Mm.
to limit or encourage? If you're not, there's a high likelihood it's going to be ineffective at best and at worst, totally misconstrued and pointless. And the
Mm-hmm.
reason, um, when we do the consequences, it's it's similar to what you're saying because it's like if we're giving consequences that aren't matching up with a behavior, or even he even said to include the kids in the consequences, and I was like, whoa, this is crazy. Because and we're building the trust, and we're kind of, he even said that at 6 years old they actually know themselves better than the parents know them, their own kid. And so like they could give us more insight into what would be a really effective discipline or a consequence for them more than we would. And I just thought that was interesting, and that the more they can do that, the more likely they'll be able to come to us, like you said, again, when they're older, um, because they know that whatever bad quote unquote thing they did, you're going to like include them in the consequence. You're gonna like, it's almost like a partnership in your life
Mm-hmm.
in a way. But then he also says that there's this balance of boundaries, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it's like I have boundaries, but as long as it doesn't encroach on those boundaries, then we can talk about the consequences.
Right.
So just to wrap up on what he said, the consequences, I thought this was nuts. So he gives an example, and it says, when your child makes a mess, that's the example. And an associated consequence is you clean it up before you play. You clean up the mess.
Mm-hmm.
A not associated consequence is they can't hang out with their friends
Mm-hmm.
that day. So it's like, wait, how how does that make sense? And then another example is when your child misbehaves at the store, and then the associated consequences, they can't come to the store next time. And then not associated, they can't use their tablet for the rest of the day.
Yep.
So it's like, I love that. I had never ever thought about consequences being like right in line with like what happened. So like,
It's a natural consequence. That's how I explained it to Holland, is
ooh, tell
that,
me more.
for example, when she was really little, like Israel's age, when I was teaching her the concept of a consequence, the example of a natural consequence would be she was throwing her doll and hurting it. Like, this is just an example, didn't happen, but say she was throwing it and hurting it. And then I would give her that associated natural consequence as a warning. I'd say, hey, let's be soft with your baby. This is one of our rules. Let's be soft with our baby. You can have another chance. If we choose to keep hurting baby, we're going to put it away for now, and you can try again later. That's a natural consequence of what
Mm,
she's doing.
yeah, and it's a break, right? It's like we'll play with it later, not next month. Or like
Yep, it's not a
some parents,
takeaway.
yeah, some parents double down. Like I remember watching this scene in the Pixar movie Luca. Have you seen that one?
Yeah, yeah,
Okay, remember when Luca, he like sneaks out up to he's kind of like the Little Mermaid. He's like he sneaks up on the land.
yeah.
And then the mom says, "You're you're gonna be punished." Or, oh, remember the creepy uncle comes? And then
Hmm.
they're like, "You're gonna go down below with your creepy uncle
Which
for."
isn't even associated with what he chose to do.
Ooh, good highlight. Good
Yeah.
highlight. So then she said for a month. And then he just retorted like why? Like he wants to know why. And then she says, "Want to make it 2 months?"
Yeah.
Just
Ooh.
like it's just like a power play. It always felt ugly to me. Like, I remember one time my dad, he said, "I love my dad. I love my dad, but I do want to highlight something you said, Dad. I love you." He said, if your mom says the sky is purple, it's purple. And I was like, everything in me knows that's wrong. Like,
Yeah.
that's wrong because you're altering how I perceive reality. Like,
Mhm.
no. And I,
Yeah.
of course, at that age, explained that eloquently. But like, I was like, Dad, no, like, I just knew, like, but I was like, I love you, but no, like, that's not right. And I'll comply with what you're saying. But deep down, I'm like, I kind of have this resentment towards you because I'm like,
Yeah.
Dad, no, like, but I still love him. But I'm like, I'll obey when you're watching, but when you're not,
Yeah.
like, misbehave.
Oh, that word obey, I super don't like. And I don't,
Ooh, go, go,
I,
go.
yeah. So when we're teaching our children to just obey us by these like fear tactics and not natural consequences, we're not creating intrinsic value in them of character building. They're
Oh my
literally
God, you're
just
gonna
doing
have to
it to obey.
dissect everything you said. This is so cool. When we are, say it all over again.
Okay. When we are creating a system of obeying and fear tactics with our children in order to get them to do what we want to do, then we're not creating intrinsic value and character building in them. They're literally just trying to survive our manipulation and
Whoa.
fall in
What does that
line.
mean? Why would someone want their kid to have intrinsic value and what does that mean?
Intrinsic value means that, for example, my daughter, when I wake up in the morning, she is nurturing me on her own because she values that. She comes into my room after I've done
Oh.
it so many days for her. She sees value in that example and comes into my room and wants to like snuggle. And she'll wake me up by just holding my cheek and
Oh
say,
my
"Good
God.
morning, mommy."
That's
Yeah.
so tender.
It's so sweet. And that's not something that I forced her to obey to do. It's just something she developed her own intrinsic value on through seeing and
Wow.
examples. I'm trying to think
So
of more of
intrinsic,
it.
so intrinsic value is or an organic behavior that they like kind of like a ritual. So it's like there's rituals that have these value systems.
Yeah, I'll give you a more basic example. So when you are doing chores with your children, you don't want to reward them with money because that's extrinsic. That means they're valuing the chore because they get money from it. Instead, what I do for chores with Holland is we dance and we do silly things, and she sees me cleaning up, and I always, always, always offer my help before we play the next thing. And she needs to clean something up. Like you said earlier, that's one of the natural consequences. She can't play the next thing until we clean up that thing first. Then I offer to help her clean it. So now she is developing a sense of how she values a clean room and being able to find things and how she values inside her own self that chores are helpful and she enjoys and like has that own character building moment rather than I'm doing this because of an external motivation because I'm going to get money.
This is blowing my mind. Can you go even deeper,
Yeah.
like even further? So like because for me, I can relate
Hmm.
with this because I'm like, he's a tornado. And I love that he is. I love him like just
Yes.
he's starting to like play with his figurines and he's going crazy. He was like he was playing horse with his basketball thing. Like it was just so cute. Like he's just
I love it.
crazy. But he's not orderly like me. So I'm not really modeling it very well, but like how would you, if you want them to have a value system, how are you,
Yes, I
or
love this
modeling,
question. Yes.
aside from
Okay.
modeling, how are you building that?
Yeah, this is an excellent question. When you're going about your day together and they say, I want my horsey, and then there's this giant mess in their room, then you would say what the natural consequence is that, oh, I see you want your horse. I'm so sorry we're not able to find that because the room is too messy right now.
What if he can find all the toys?
Oh, he can find it. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, for that young of age, I would just model and do it with them immediately. So instead of like you want to build the habit with them, instead of
Mhm.
allowing him to pull out a new toy, you stop what you're doing, you go over to them, get on their level, and say, "We're not going to play with the next toy until we clean up this one." Obviously, you don't want to interrupt their different, they can play with one thing with the other thing. They can build villages.
That's how we play. Is like we're
Yeah.
like we have like all the figurines and then we have like the truck coming in and then we
It's like
have
its own little community. You don't want to take away
yeah.
that. Yeah.
So then but I also struggle because I really like to go to the gym at 10:30. And so we like put all the little figurines to take a nap. He likes to put them to take a nap. But like I really don't I really struggle trying to, or what would you recommend to make that transition where we clean? I don't really want to though. Oh, this is interesting.
Yeah. So it has to be a value that you have, even if you don't really have that inside, because no one wants to clean like 24/7. That's not something,
True.
obviously, I'm like, I don't want to do the dishes right now. I'm just saying you have to make that a priority for yourself for him
Hmm.
to be able to develop that. So if you want
That's
him to learn how to clean up after himself, you have to
hmm.
offer to volunteer doing it with him.
Okay. So then, okay, so he puts his little figurines to nap. Then what would I do to like trigger the next cleaning step?
So he goes to sleep, you're saying?
No, we put all the figurines to take a nap.
Oh,
It's
cute.
yeah,
Because
he's like,
he's about to
okay.
take a nap.
Well, we go to the gym and then he takes a nap. But yeah, it's like
Oh, that is so cute. Okay. So then offer that his ball's gonna take a nap in the box and say, "Oh, now the ball's
oh,
gonna take a
I,
nap. Let's
that's
go to the
easy.
box." Boom, 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 boom. And Horsey's gonna take a nap. Let's put her in her stall.
Okay, so he likes to put the blanket on the things.
Oh, okay. Well, just do start teaching him imaginative play and pretend like there's a
Mm.
blanket in your hand and just let's put the blanket on. He'll run with that with imaginative play.
How do you, because maybe there's aspects of
Hmm.
imaginative play with the figurines, right?
Hmm. Hmm.
But I don't think I've ever done like no solid
Nothing.
object
Yeah.
imaginatively.
Yeah, you just have to start. I would start with like pretending to eat food with him sometimes with his kitchen. Be like, "Ooh, I have an apple. It's delicious." And you don't have to get extra, Miss Rachel. I'm
Okay,
just
yeah. Oh,
do it
thank
how
God.
you do it. Okay, full disclosure, I'm a teacher. I taught second grade. I have this tendency to get a teacher voice and super animated, and it's just ingrained into my body. I can't help it. So
We love
don't
it. We just love it.
don't feel like you have to do it this animated, but this is just how I do it when you're playing market and playing with his kitchen.
Hmm.
Start instead of using the actual foods, start
Uh-huh.
pretending to mix it. Start
That's
pretending to
so
eat it.
cute.
Give
Oh, I
him a bite.
love that.
Okay, and then yeah,
Mm.
give him a bite. So tasty. And then now you can move it to the blankets.
And podcasters, like, I know you guys can't see what she's doing, but she's literally like grabbing an apple and putting it to her mouth and like biting into it and like grabbing a blanket with her, like pinching it with her fingers and putting it
This
over the object.
This is a really helpful step in their neuroplasticity and brain development as well, to just tie it to psychology. Children are learning at ages, I would say, even 6 months, as early as 6 months to two
Oh,
years, that what object permanence is
mhm.
versus, imaginative play. Those are all hand in hand. So you're actually helping their brain and neuroplasticity when you do this type of play with them, when you're pretending. It's really helpful for them.
That's interesting because I find when I leave a room, Israel, like, he loves to check in on me and even just chase me.
Yeah, that's an object permanence lesson. So the more you do this type of thing, the more he'll develop a relationship to know you're not gone. You're still there.
Mm. Oh, that's so good. And I know that I've done exercises with him with like peekaboo,
Yeah.
like a
Yeah.
blanket, like where's
So helpful.
mom?
Yeah.
We do that, but maybe you're saying like doing things like this will reiterate that lesson.
It'll further the knowledge for him. It'll kind of cement it in that
That's good.
there's not permanent things and there's permanent things.
Oh, okay. Can we go back to this
Yes.
intrinsic thing? So you said you don't give Holland money for chores. You make it a reward in doing whatever the thing it is.
Yes. So that she values it all on her own rather than valuing money for the thing that we're doing.
That's nuts. So how does one start that process?
Yeah, the ways that I started with Holland is we would dance clean. That's just my personality type.
So you would
Make
put
the
like you'd play music and we're
play
like, it's
music.
cleaning time or
We're gonna dance clean and we just get crazy and shake our booties while we're cleaning. And
and are
I
you
try to
buying her like child toy or are you giving her actual cleaning supplies?
I never got her child cleaning supplies. I just safely allowed her to use certain things. I started with the duster.
Oh,
That was like one
cute.
of her favorite chores to do.
And like
And
the
never, yeah, I
toilet.
never redid what she did. I that was important to me in her presence
I
and with her
see.
knowing. Yeah, I just want her to value her work ethic and not feel like she's doing it wrong.
Oh,
And she'll
wow.
slowly learn on her own through mistakes, trial and error. And obviously, we can give them tips. I'm just saying, don't correct your child with how they're cleaning. You're going to create a problem around surrounding their thought process of cleaning.
Okay, this is coming up for me. So I wonder, because Israel likes to help me make smoothies,
Hmm.
but I let him like put the blender on the machine. Like he's like super strong. And there's something he used to do. So he used to pour the thing, and I would let him pour the whole thing out. But now he doesn't. And I wonder if it's because I was like, oh, whoa, 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 like it's gonna like overfill.
Yeah.
Is that what it
Like
was?
it likely is related to that.
Yeah, he
He
won't do
was
it
just
anymore. He's like,
responding to the corrective behavior, which instead of being like, you're doing that wrong, or in that way, obviously it's natural for us to be like trying to prevent the mess. Try modeling it first, showing him
mhm.
how, and then letting him try. And
I've done
then
that.
you've done that. Okay.
Yeah,
I also would hold her hand and show her and speak what I'm doing out loud. So
I've
I
done
would,
that.
you've done that too. Okay, then it's just a motor skill that you have to keep doing.
Uh,
So I say, I'm going to pour slowly so that all the juice gets inside of the cup. And look, it all made it in this time. And then if I make any spills, I say, whoops, made a mistake. Let's clean it up. That type of thing.
oh, so you're
They
saying
just,
do that now?
yeah, because they need to feel safe. The reason he might be not doing it anymore is from the overcorrection.
Oh
He
yeah,
needs
I
to
know I
feel
did.
safe to make those mistakes, which
No.
obviously as a parent, we don't want to be cleaning up messes all the time. So that's where I say model first, help guide their hand, that
Yeah.
type of thing, and then just let them go. Let them try.
Yeah, that's tough. That's so tough. And
Yeah.
I know,
We can pick and choose too. It doesn't have to be everything we're doing.
I know. Yeah, that's a good point. That's a good point.
I do one thing at a time when they're that little too. So Holland doesn't have a giant list of chores. She's slowly built her chore list. So we started with
Ooh.
just one chore a day,
Which was like what?
which was the
And you
cleaning of
gave
the
it to her?
toys. That's just something I encouraged and did with her. So whenever I was cleaning, for example, if it was like a cleaning time a certain day of the week, then I would initiate the music and say, it's time to clean. And then she would have her job of dusting. And I first modeled dusting for her, and then I just let her do it.
Were you what so when you're modeling, so I mean, if you can recall, this was probably
Yeah.
so long, but it was
Yeah.
like, so you were like dusting, or you put the music on, and like, it's time to dust, and then you like dust, and like, do you want to try, or like, are you like, try it? What are you?
So, yeah, I love your clarifying. So I would describe how there's dust on the screen. So I'd say, "Ooh, look at this dust." And then I'd swipe it and show her so she could see the
Mm,
difference. I need her to see what we're doing. Like it seems a simple concept to us, but kids don't quite, if we're not teaching them and being obvious, they're not going to know what the goal is
right.
because they don't know dust is bad or whatever. Does that make
Yeah.
sense? So I
Right.
show her how wiping that off takes off the dust, and then I say, "Your turn," and I give it to her.
Oh, that's adorable. Okay. So there's like you're showing them, then you do it, then you say your turn.
Yes.
Oh, that's so cute.
And then um, we have to be careful with the way that we praise them
Ooh.
because we don't want their intrinsic value to again become external, which is from our praise. And obviously, you're not going to always not praise them like a parent does. We want them to get both. So I'm careful to give both, meaning sometimes I'm like, that was amazing. You're so awesome. I love it. I do that type of praise. I want my child to know I'm so proud of them. I
Yeah.
also want her to have that intrinsic value of accomplishment. So I be specific with what I say. I say, you dusted every single dust on that screen. That's not praising, it's just a fact.
What does that do?
That puts the value back to herself. So instead of the value coming from what I said, it's in what she did and what she accomplished.
So she gets to decide how she feels about that? Is that kind of the goal?
Yeah,
That's so
I,
cool.
yeah, and I always point that out. I say, how do you feel about that? You just got that job done. How do you feel about that?
Yeah. If I have more questions. So in the dusting scenario, what is it where she's like, "Mom, look what I did." And then you're like, "Oh, look, you dusted all the dust off that laptop."
Yeah, that's a perfect example.
And
Yeah.
then you would ask like, "How do you feel about that?"
Yep, exactly. Always follow up. That's how, if she's specifically looking for how I'm feeling about the thing she did, then I always make sure I finish it with, how do you feel about it though? So that it's put back into her own value rather than my value.
How do you know if she's asking you how you feel about it?
Kids will say, look at me, mom. Look at this. Look at what I'm doing. Those types of things, they're looking for praise most of the time.
I see. Okay, so it's not really like mom, it's not like outright saying like emotion.
Yeah.
I see. So you choose 50-50. You're like, okay, I did some parental praise earlier, and
Yes.
now I need to let her do her own praise. Is that kind
Mhm.
of the mindset?
Yes, exactly. I need to let her start developing intrinsic value. So I'm going to just be specific. And I did this as a teacher as well. Kids often wanted to show their work. They wanted to show if they created this really cool artwork. I will often praise them and say, "Oh my gosh, that's amazing. I see so much detail." Also, I'll say, "I see you used so many different materials on this." That's not me praising them. That's just pointing out what they did because I want them to value their effort that they made.
This is so interesting. So like I told you before on the episode, I
Hmm.
was teaching like a hip hop class to kindergarten, first, second graders. And I get really overwhelmed because there'll be like these cute 10 voices. And I don't like, I think the part that's overwhelming is I know I'm disappointing a bunch of them because I can't give them all my undivided attention.
Yeah.
It's upsetting because I'm just like I'm trying to run this class. Everyone wants my attention. Now I'm overstimulated and overwhelmed. And I'm also feeling disappointment because I'm like, ugh, like, how can I do this? So I think one of the things that drives me up a wall is when like all 10 of them are like, look at me, 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 look at me. And I'm like, will
Yeah.
explode. And I'm like, I want to look at you, but can you guys like wait your turn? That's like
Yeah.
what's going on in my head. And then they'll like one goes in front of the other, one goes in front of the other, one goes in front of the other, one goes in front of the other to like make sure they get right up in front of you. And I'm like, it's so cute because they look up to you and that's such a great feeling. But like, how would you manage that situation?
Yeah, I love this. This can relate to our children as well, especially if we have multiple children.
Oh,
So it's important to know that as a parent, you can and should set boundaries. And so for a classroom, you're setting expectations. So for parents, you're setting boundaries and expectations. And for a classroom, you're setting boundaries and expectations. So before you begin, you have to let them know what the boundary is, what the expectation is. So I would
I,
say,
I don't even have rules for them.
yeah, I would say, hey, this is what you're allowed to do in this certain time frame. So right now I'm going to be teaching this and I will give you time at the end to do this to show me what you got. Right now we're going to focus on learning. So we're not going to do show and tell yet. There's a time at the end of class where you do show and tell type thing.
Oh, oh my God. That is amazing. So they we're still meeting the need, but in my time and when I want to do it, oh,
Yeah.
I love this.
And that's such a healthy modeling for your child or for your classroom as well, is they need to see boundaries are healthy and okay. And
Yeah,
expectations are just going to help them. They don't know what to expect unless we tell them. They don't know it's not within the guidelines of the classroom to be sharing that with you because that's what they've set up so far.
yeah, it's chaos. It's such chaos. And I know it's me. And I am trying to do what I've been learning, but I'm literally like an embryo in in the realm of parenting and emotion regulation for myself. So like I've
Aren't
been
we all?
yo, especially when you have a kid, you're like like those cartoons where their like temperature just rises and then it
And then
explodes.
explode.
Oh
Yeah.
man.
Yeah.
And
So set expectations. Start out with that. That's going to be your saving tool.
I remember one time you kind of you were as my friend, you were helping me with this girl. I think this was back in China. Like, remember I taught Chinese kids how to speak. I
Yes,
had these
I
rules.
do.
I think it was back then. And you were like, you need to make sure that the rules are visual and you can see the rules and they can see them and they're almost like reiterated every day, every time you see them. Is that kind of, do you still give that
Yeah.
advice or has that changed?
Yeah. Yeah, so for example, and I did this as a coach for T-ball, I did this in my classroom. I have the visual rule when I first introduce it, and then I like to kind of role model and pretend play. I have a student show what not to do and a student show what to do, and then I come up with a cute mnemonic for them to remember. So then they don't always have to refer to what they're looking at. I can give them a response. So I say, number one rule, and then they go, be respectful. And
Oh,
so
cute.
and that will just help target the part of learning that we had already of modeling what do we do? What do we not do? And it'll just spark all that back to what they already learned.
Oh, that's so cute. I love that. I'm talking to you about that later. So,
Okay.
okay, another thing I want to ask you about is reward systems. So, I I think this is a great example, and I feel like a lot of parents will benefit from this. So, in this class, in this hip hop class, I decided one of the teachers was like, "Hey, so some of your kids aren't participating." And we want them to all participate. And I was like, oh, like what if I do a tally system where I like every time someone is like involved, I give those kids a tally. So it's like rewarding people doing the positive behaviors. So then the people coming back in are going to want to do that positive behavior. But then um the kids that are on task are getting more tallies, obviously, and getting the prizes. And then the kids who struggle to be on task aren't getting the prizes. So now the parents are getting upset. And they're like, why aren't my kids getting prizes and everyone else is? What are your thoughts on that?
Okay, that's tough. Have you talked individually to the students struggling to stay on task?
No.
Okay, I would set an expectation with them individually. Obviously, that's not being set with their parents. So you would get down on their level and talk to them about what you expect them to do in class and why, and do it
Well, and
in
I
from a
haven't even
loving
done that
place.
on a group level. So I
Okay.
haven't done a group level. So, okay,
Yeah.
step one, group level. And then step two, the kids struggling. Would I do
Yeah.
that in one session or do you recommend spacing it out?
I would say try the group level first, and if they respond to that, then you're good and you don't have to talk to them individually. But if they haven't improved from that point, then you would get down on their level and talk to them individually and say, "Hey, I know you want to learn how to dance, and I see you have all the skill base to do so. In order to be successful in this class, I need you to participate, and I would love for you to participate. And I want you to earn tallies so that you can get this reward. I know you can do it. So let's do this today."
I like that. I like that. Okay. So then what and I this was one of the only rules that I set up. I was like, "Okay, what's the rule about the tally chart? Like don't talk about the tallies." Because I was like, "Oh my God." They were every second they're like, "I have this many tallies. I have this many tallies. Why didn't I get this many tallies?" Da, 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 da. I was like, "I'm going crazy." Like,
Okay. Okay, that's totally understandable. They're excited about the tallies.
which is
And
great.
yeah, that's great. So that comes back to setting expectations. So
Oh.
for seriously, the whole entire month of August and September is entirely set up of classroom rules and expectations. And it's not just a speech, it's not an audible lesson. It's modeling. It's having kids do examples of what not to do and examples of what to do. It's being silly. It's turning and talking to each other about what they think is the right way to behave and not the right way and why it's not the right way. Does that make sense? So you need
Wow.
to take a whole class where you can separate your lessons, obviously, because kids' attention span is their age, plus or minus a few minutes. So if you're teaching about how they should raise their hand, and obviously this isn't applying to parents for like raising hands, but if you have kids talking when you're talking to another adult, there
Mm.
can be something like this in place where the child comes and rests their hand on your side. So you've set an expectation and let them know that through previous modeling. And I've practiced this with Holland, where I'm pretending to talk to an adult and she has something she wants to tell me. And instead of interrupting me, she'll come and rest her hand on the side and say, "Excuse me, Mom, I have something to tell you." And then she waits.
Oh my God. Everyone just needs to have Lydia raise their children. I resign.
Oh,
I resign.
I say this all from a place of like lots of practice and mistakes, and all of you can tailor this to your own relationships with your children. This is just how I work, and it can be accomplished in your own way.
I feel like that's so overwhelming. Honestly, like when you tell me this, I experience overwhelm. Like it's like even just raising a hand, I have to like have them paddle to each other, to me, what not to do, what to do.
Oh, I was giving you those different examples of different things you could teach. So you don't have to do every single thing for that specific thing you're teaching. I'm
Oh.
just giving you examples of how you could switch up your lesson because their attention span is 6 minutes. So for the next thing you
Oh.
teach, instead of modeling, you would have them turn to a neighbor for tally marks. And then the next thing you teach about being respectful, you would have them, does that make sense? You'd have them go
Hands to
right on the
yourself.
board.
Keep your
Yeah.
hands to yourself.
Yeah.
I get it. So every 6 minutes, it's a new lesson. 6 minutes.
Yeah.
6 minutes.
Yeah. You want to, just depending on their age. I'm saying six because my daughter's six. And
Yeah.
every kid, depending on how much time they've practiced being a learner and having those environments, will change how well they can pay attention and how long their attention span is. But usually, I'd say a good rule of thumb is their age. That's a helpful tip to
Mm.
remember.
Okay, so my son's 2, so his attention span's 2 minutes.
Hmm. So you
Wow.
want to get the lesson in within that 2 minutes because
Ye-
then they'll start wandering. Yeah,
I
it
don't
can be
think.
super simple. Like
Okay.
we don't have to complicate things.
Yeah, wow. So then maybe I could tailor whatever it is, whatever it is we're trying to teach, if it's dance, if it's how to keep your hands to yourself, how to not interrupt mom when she's on the phone or talking to another adult. It's and how are you teaching? You said that like you're modeling. These are just ways to teach this aspect.
Yes. And then always make sure you point out how much you appreciate their effort. And
Okay.
also point out if they make mistakes, point out how it's okay to make mistakes and that we can learn together. And don't be upset that they didn't follow that guideline. Just keep reminding. So when Holland does what I've asked her to do with like touching my side, when I'm ready to acknowledge her, I first say, I see you touched my side and I appreciate that so much. I was able to finish what I was saying to my friend. Thank you. What would you like
Hmm.
to tell me?
Can you parent me too?
Yes. Aw, I feel like it's just really just healthy relationships. That's what we're trying to build. So,
Yeah, but I mean, like you and I have a very um, interesting upbringing, right? So it's like
right.
it's interesting
Yeah.
how much it's. I swear, it's parenting is the source. This is what Joe Dispenza said. He's like, if you want to be the most enlightened human beings, become a parent.
Oh my goodness, yes. Oh, I've learned so much. It's so true.
Yeah, yeah, and it really opens up your heart and your wounds and your triggers and I I really think that social media or, older generations, they kind of focus so much on the negative aspects of parenting. And I'm like, yes, those are there, right? It's hard. It is hard, but
Yeah.
but there are so many rewards. Like, I mean, like,
Yes.
can we just focus on that a little bit? And I mean, I guess if it makes sense with how the human brain works, right? The human brain focuses on the negative much more than the positive on a survival standpoint. But like, it's just I get sad. I'm like, yo, like parenting is yes, it's hard. I won't deny that. That is true. And it's funny. Like I love all the content that they pull out. I'm like, yeah, that's accurate and
It's
hilarious.
hilarious.
But like at the same time, it's kind of the messaging is like, don't be a parent, right? It's like your life
Yeah.
is over. And it's like, no, 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 no.
Mm-mm.
Your life is definitely different. Not the same as when you're didn't have a kid, but it's like different in the best ways. And you can still do the things you did before you're single or not having a kid life, but it's harder. Like that's it.
Hmm.
And it's like, are you up for the challenge? And I really like this poet. He said, I don't wish for your life to be harder, wish to be stronger. No, it's not a poet, it's a president. It's a president of the United States, and I don't know his name. But isn't that so beautiful? It's like,
Yeah.
yeah, like why would we ever, no matter what, even if we're not parents, wish for life to be easier? Like, so cool. Being stronger sounds so much more empowering, you know?
Yeah, definitely. And going in tandem with that, I feel like not only are we getting joys from parenting beyond what we could have ever even comprehended, but we're also healing in that journey because we're reparenting ourselves in a sense every time that we choose not to be triggered and choose not to react the way our parents reacted in certain scenarios. We are healing that part of ourselves. We're healing baby Haley. We're healing little Lydia.
Right. The other part of parenting I've noticed is like I am so much more compassionate and empathic
Mhm.
with my mom. I'm like,
Yeah.
I get you now. I'm like, oh, I see why you might have done that. Okay, it makes sense now.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's so funny because my mom, she would always say, like, vas a ver, you're gonna see when you have kids. You're just wait. And I'm like, damn, she was right. I'm not
Uh,
gonna tell her, but she was right.
full circle.
Honestly. So wrapping up, um, tell me your, oh, actually, I really want to touch on this really quick. I've seen a few videos. I just need to change my algorithm on my Instagram because I don't like some of the freaking videos I see. Two videos come to mind. There's a video of this, I mean, it's a baby, like clearly in diapers. It's like a 18-month-old can stand up and walk. So one-ish. And the mom has the baby go sit in a corner. Oh, okay, guys. Lydia's face is like total upset and fury.
Okay, keep going. Sorry.
That's it. And the baby's crying the whole time and just sad and like, go sit in your corner. Go sit in your corner. Go sit in your corner. You did this. Go sit in your corner. And I'm like, there's something cringy about that. I don't know what it is, but I'm like, no, I don't like it. Your thoughts?
Yes. Okay. So this goes, it's directly related to the concept of having natural consequences. The child is learning absolutely nothing from the corner. They're learning to obey mom. They're not learning that intrinsic value like we already talked about. And it's harmful to them. They're isolating. You're teaching them to isolate
Oh
and
my
not reach
God.
out.
Yeah.
And all they're wanting is nurture. And we
They're
want to encourage
4 years
that.
old. Yeah.
Yeah, that is so little. And there comes a time in the appropriate age where a child's response would be, I feel like me time right now. I just need to settle myself. I need to ground myself. I want my corner of like soft stuffies or different types of ways that they can cope with their emotions. That is totally helpful and healthy when it's age appropriate. But if we are forcing them into the corner and we're not relating the consequence to the action, it is not beneficial. It's harming them. It's harming their brain development, and you're setting yourself up for failure because you want them to be able to express their feelings. And by forcing them into a corner, you're teaching them not to express their feelings. You're teaching them not to connect with you. It is not helpful. And I highly recommend you don't do that.
Yeah, it was so nasty.
Not to like parent shame. We're all given different background knowledges, and I have a different education than that mom. I don't want to shame anyone that does this. I'm just coming from what I've learned and what I've tried and tested.
yeah,
I highly don't recommend it.
I love, yeah. Yeah, I easily slip into judgment. I'm like, because I'm just like, that poor baby, like, ugh.
Yeah.
No, you're right. That's a good redirect. Second video is this, I think you were kind of, we were talking about corporal punishment, but it was this dad. I think the daughter was being disrespectful and saying mean things to the mom. So it was like, when your daughter disrespects mom, was like the
Mhm.
caption. And she had to do 50 squats. And she's like okay, Lydia's face.
I'm not someone who can hide it. Sorry.
I love it. I love it. And I was just like, this is nasty. Like, first of all, exactly. Like, it's like, what does being disrespectful have to do with squats? Like, what is the connection? It didn't make any sense to me. And I'm like, 50? Yo, like as an adult, my thighs are on fire after 12. 12. And I'm like, I'm warmed up, not on fire, but like I'm warmed up. And it's like 50? 50? Like, that's extreme. Your
Yeah,
thoughts?
that is very extreme. And I'm just gonna first approach from a psychology standpoint. So, from a child's brain development from 0 to, I would say, 8, their neuroplasticity is like times 100. It's so much, which means they're learning and brain pathways are forming now. They're forming foundational brain pathways that will stick with them for life. And they're very difficult to reset those brain pathways, which is why we're still triggered as adults for things that we did as a child that we got in trouble for. So when I say that, I'm saying it's very important that you do not use corporal punishment and exercise as a form of discipline because it is so unhealthy for the brain pathways you are developing in that child that later on, every time they exercise, it is going to be the worst for them. Their brain is unhappy. It is a punishment. It is not a reward to exercise and do push ups for their body. And you're setting them up for that failure. So you're setting them up for a life of a struggle to be healthy and strong and exercise and even it may turn to obesity. It's not healthy to do that.
Oh, I love what you're saying. So the punishment-free parenting book, I'm going to lead some stats because I'm right there with you. So corporal punishment, all that means is inflicting physical pain. And then
Yep.
so physical pain could be even like I had a friend say that she like flicks her kid's wrist. That counts. So so it doesn't work. And there's a 1990 study found that corporal punishment is not effective and actually has negative development outcomes. There was a National Opinion Research Center in the year 2000 where US parents believe spanking is necessary to those who don't, 3 to 1.
Mm.
So it's like so many parents believe that this is true. 6 years later, 76% of parents still believed spanking is still necessary. In 1979, Sweden was the first country to ban corporal punishment because of the well-documented damaging effects on children. Corporal punishment is linked to antisocial, poor mental health, and violence in children. Oh my God. And then he even talked about these kids. There was a study they did where they separated the kids and it was just playing with the toys. And so the parents or the adult
Is this the
figure,
clown study?
I'm not sure.
Okay, sorry to
Toys.
interrupt. Okay.
It was toys and they were like the adults were like
Being
hitting the
harmful. Yeah.
yeah.
It's Buddy the Clown.
Oh, is that what the experiment was on?
Yeah. It's like a punching bag. I'm sure they did it with toys too,
Yeah,
where
but the
they're
kids,
modeling.
so the adults were being violent with the
Hmm.
toys, and
Hmm.
then the adults left, and then the kids were then violent with the toys. And then the adults on the second group, like the control group, they were like, okay, we're just gonna play nice with the toys. And then those kids were playing nicely with those toys. So it's just like the power of modeling and
Yeah.
mirroring and like it's just yeah, I there's something in me that when my parents hit me, oh, it felt so like even just yelling at me was enough. My dad, he always said that. He was like, yeah, like punishment for you, like even if we yelled at you, like your behavior would correct like this. And then he even goes to say like, well, I got hit as a kid and I turned out fine. And that line of argument doesn't overpower all the statistical evidence that it's literally so damaging and it's just not effective either. It's not effective in correcting behavior because there's just so many factors. And I was like,
Hmm.
yeah. And when I would get hit as a kid, it just felt so it felt so I would just be so sad. Like I would just be so taken aback and I would take it personally. Like I'd be like, what did I do to deserve like I must be a really bad person. Like I would kind of create this identity. Like I was like, I must be a really bad kid to have done that was done to me. Like what can I do to avoid that? And like how do I who do I need to be? Like
Hmm.
how do I change the person I am to be someone who doesn't get hit? So it's I mean, and I'm a really sensitive person and it's like we all are, but like I mean just ugh, the amount of emotional toll that it took on me aside
Hmm.
from the physical was just
Hmm.
immeasurable. It really was.
Yeah. And not only that, but I'm sure. you've done so much work in your adulthood to be able to heal your body, but a lot of adults, including probably your dad, have not healed that part of themselves and likely are triggered and feel their body still in a trauma state. Even if you don't realize it, the tense shoulders, the stomach problems, anything like that is directly related likely to the punishment and physical abuse you had. Your body is it's still in that fight or flight until you take time to heal it. And that's what we're setting up children for with corporal punishment. It's not healthy.
It's ugh.
Going along with that study you mentioned, I love that study. And I remembered it's Bobo the Clown. I think that's the name of the study. They also had a child, probably between 1 to 2, not speaking sentences yet, but in a very super learning state. They had them sit at the desk and they put a lot of different Montessori style toys in front of them and they didn't say anything. They just let them be. And then they did another, and the child was curious. They were playing, they were learning how to put things inside other things. And then they did the study again, same controls, but this time they spoke to the child, pointed out what they were doing, and the child became even more inquisitive and was starting to grasp concepts even more. And then they did the study for a third time where they yelled at the child and they slammed the toys down. They didn't even say anything relating to what the child did. They just said, no, wrong, and like just yelled or went, ah. And the child completely like stopped, would not touch the toys, became blank slated, and refused to learn for the rest of the day. So this is the harm we're creating for children. We're literally making their brains stop because they're not safe to learn and grow. When
Dang.
we harm and punish a natural human tendency of growth, we're preventing growth. We're stopping their brain. It's not safe.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. It's so interesting how much how much parenting brings up, right? It's like,
Yeah, yeah.
oh man, here's the stew. Getting all
I
sour.
know. I get super passionate about it, probably from my childhood, you know?
Right,
Those-
right. So the third video that I want to ask you about, the caption was when gentle parenting just doesn't work. And she says to her son, she says, stop crying, be a man. Stop crying, be a man. You better stop that crying. I know you're sad, but you better stop that crying.
Mm.
Lydia's like posture is just like deflated. Like, oh man.
Oh,
And
I
he's
just
probably like 6. He's probably like 6.
can't. Okay, I love my favorite tool for parents and friends and anyone that asks me about these things is to flip it. So imagine you come to me with the most devastating day that you had. Like think of the worst thing in your world that could have happened. You
Oh,
come to me with that devastation and you're crying and you're upset and I'm your safe person. You're telling me about this and you expect me to be that safe person because that's the role I've shown up for you before. And instead, I tell you, stop, quit crying. You be a woman. You be better. This isn't okay. Step up.
I
How
would
would you feel?
I would hang up that phone. Ugh,
Yeah,
God.
that's just so
Yeah.
not fair. We wouldn't expect that of ourselves, number one. And number two, we're stopping a possible opportunity for growth, growth in the relationship, growth in their brain. Gentle parenting, I don't necessarily love the stigma surrounding that phrasing. I like to call it better as healthy parenting, just
Hmm.
healthy parenting. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, that's good. I like that phraseology better too, actually. Yeah. Yeah, gentle parenting has this
Stigmas that,
like lamb energy. Like
yeah,
like eh.
yeah.
Oh yeah, yeah, that's a good. Ooh.
So I would say in
Movement, Lydia?
response to that
Can you lead
video,
that movement? The healthy parent
yes, healthy
room?
parenting. In response to that parent, um, I would just encourage them. to keep trying. Don't stop the opportunity to learn with your child.
The best piece of advice you gave me was just like say, I'll be right back. Mom is really triggered and overwhelmed. I'll be right back.
Yeah.
Because whatever's coming out of my mouth is not okay. I'm,
Yeah.
Mom's not okay. I need to go outside. That has been the best tool for me. And I'm telling you, like, there's parts where it's kind of this slow build. It's like do 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 do, and it's like say I'll be right back. And I used to not do that. I used to just like run away and try to like breathe. But then you said why are you letting it build? Like you could have been okay, so you notice it building up. Right when you notice it, go. Don't let it escalate. And I was like, oh my God, that's even better. Like, why am I letting this escalate? Like, obviously, my nervous system is activated. It thinks there's a fire, right? My nervous system thinks there's a fire in my body, and like I need to like. So I really loved those two tips that you gave me, and it's helped me so much. And then in the moments that like last night, I think. Last night, I Israel was in the car and I'm not sure what he was trying to do, but he wasn't handing me his toys to take out of the car. And I just yanked them out of his hand. So I was like, "Can you give me the toys?" And he was like, "No." And then I like yanked them. And I was like, "Oh, that was like out of freaking nowhere." Like we were like chilling and I was like, what the heck? Like, where did that come from? I was totally chill. And then he starts wailing and crying. And I'm like, baby, I'm so sorry. I don't know why I
Yay.
did that. I'm like, I shouldn't have done that. I'm sorry. Do you want here's the basket back? Like, I don't know why I needed the basket. I don't know why I yanked it from your hand. It was this weird, like, I need control. It was so weird. I
Mhm.
can't even explain. It was like from 0 to 10
Yeah,
moment. And I'm
for
like,
sure, trigger.
yeah. And I'm like, there's so many times. And it's so funny how you said this earlier in the podcast. And I want to highlight it because you're like, instead of being prideful, and so say whatever happens between you and your kid, and you're like, instead of being prideful and just letting it happen or
Dissipate.
play out, resonate or
Like
ruminate,
dissipate, yeah. And mhm.
yeah, just be there. You stop and say, that's not okay. What mom did is not okay. And I love that because, oh, that is so vulnerable, humble, conscious. I mean, hello, enlightened person right there, right? Like that takes a hell of a lot of guts to do. And you're right, it's pride. It's freaking pride. Like if you can't acknowledge that you made a mistake to your child, like that's some growth, right? Like you got to do some growth right there. That's a really great place to start. And we all do it. And I think that a lot of times as parents is like we want to pretend like everything's fine and we're perfect and it's like just not the case. It's not reality. And we're going to, like you said, there's triggers from our childhood. Even if you have done a lot of healing work, there's gonna be still some triggers coming up.
Yes. And I love that you were willing to be vulnerable and apologize and say sorry. And that's amazing. And you just created a strong relationship with Israel by doing that. That's so healthy. We're going to make mistakes and we can repair right away. And it is difficult and humbling and very hard to do. But honestly, like, I'm not in it to be the controller, authoritative parent. I'm in it to build this relationship and build a healthy human. And so I'm willing always to say sorry and make mistakes and own up to them. And a tool I'd like to offer when we want to control our child in certain situations. For example, when my daughter was throwing rocks down a slide when she was a lot younger, I had already given her an expectation not to do that at previous times because other kids would get hit by the rocks and such things. Instead, this time I got curious. So my first like thing that I
Get
have to
curious,
teach
not
myself,
furious.
yeah, is get curious, not furious, because the child is not throwing rocks down to be a pain in the butt. They're throwing rocks down, and she expressed this to me. She wanted to see what would happen. They're such little scientists. Like most of the time, I would say 99% of the time, when we ask why the child, like you ask them to hand them the toy, hand you the toy, then we ask, why aren't you handing me the toy? There is some funny, hilarious, coolest scenario that they've created in their brain that I end up laughing about instead of getting furious about. I cannot tell you how many times I have had this situation happen where Holland is maybe not listening, but it's not intentional. And I just get curious. I'm like, what's going on in her brain? And I ask her, and she has created the coolest scenario or situation or scientist moment that I'm like, right on. And I'm not angry about it. I just
Oh,
knowledge. And I still want her to listen. So I'll say, okay, take 3 more minutes of that. I love that. I love where your brain is going. I'm going to let you finish what you were doing. And then let's do this. Set that expectation.
I love that. That's crazy. So I'm on chapter 5 of the punishment-free parenting, and he literally says what you said, girl. You got this book memorized. So he says, why do kids misbehave? And this is no parent influence. So number one, doing developmentally appropriate things that are socially inappropriate. They communicate everyday unmet needs or testing and trying new things to learn
Hmm.
the little
Yep.
scientist thing you're saying. And then this is reasons they misbehave influenced by the parents. Number one is problematic behaviors modeled
Hmm.
to meet their needs. The parent lacks ability or will to set boundaries. Number two, can you tell me how do we know if we're fulfilling our kids' needs? Is and maybe you can break that up into
Yeah.
like physical, emotional, mental.
Yeah. Okay. An example of how I might not have fulfilled Holland's needs and I can fully tell is if we had, say, a busy day or a day where she was in certain classes a lot, which happens a lot because kids are in school, and she didn't get a lot of time communicating emotionally with me, then she will be a hot mess. Like at the end of the day, when it's bedtime, she will just fall apart and it'll be a struggle. And that's
Yeah.
her way. Obviously, this is before she's not doing that as much these nowadays after, I've worked on that, being able to hit her emotional needs. But there were times where I was like, what is going on? Oh, you know what? I did not give her moments of emotion today, like where she could connect with me emotionally. I was one on one. I was giving her my time, even for like 5 minutes, where I set a time aside where I'm like, what do you want from me right now? What
Oh,
can I give you?
that's such a yummy question. That's
Yeah.
what do you
Like,
want from me right now? That's
yeah. My daughter is an only child, and so I've noticed in her something that maybe she's not getting fulfilled is she's feeling lonely, although she didn't know how to communicate that to me. So she never used the word lonely. But
Mm,
I noticed she was saying, Mom, look at this, Mom, that, like often demanding my attention. And I
yeah.
knew that I was giving other cues with that. So then I got curious. And I slowly asked questions that helped me come to realize, oh, she's lonely. She's an only child. She wants someone to like pay attention and be with and play with. So, yeah.
I love that. So, okay, what are the needs of a child? I know it sounds stupid to ask that, but I want it reiterated.
Oh, I love this.
And then I have a follow-up to that example you gave.
Okay. Every age has obviously different certain needs that need to be fulfilled. Like a child at below 4 needs a nap. Okay. Or below 3. That's a need. They need sleep. They need naps. They need a regular schedule. But I would say the Pavlov basic needs is that they need nurture, they need to feel safe, they need communication, they need the health needs like sleep, food, water, and then they need play. So those are like the major things
Play
I
is
would
a
say.
need.
Yeah, their brain needs to play, discover, experiment.
Wow. So, how do you know as a teacher with your kids, how do you know the kids who didn't get that need met in class?
Bef How do I know in the moment that they didn't get a need fulfilled?
Or just like how do you know if a child isn't getting their play needs met? Like what are the signs?
Okay. A sign of not having a play need met is that they're pushing boundaries with your expectations. If you say, hey, it's time for bed, and or I guess in the classroom, it's time to move on from this situation, and they're pushing to still be playing, then they didn't meet their need of play that day, likely, or they're having a super buildup of energy that needs to be let out. They need to wrestle, they need to move their body. They just have a spurt of energy, second wind, those types of things. So often it shows in the misbehavior, I would say. Or if their emotional needs aren't met, they're acting super emotional. If they're not responding to going to bed, it's that they didn't get enough playtime or inquisitive time. So it's often their behavior that lets you know that. There's cues that they give you that you can pick up on.
I I love what you're saying, and I feel like every parent, every
Yeah.
healthy desiring parent, maybe they're not at that level of they know all the tools, they know all the psychology behind it, but I think every parent who
Is working towards it.
is working towards it knows their child very well. And
Yes,
so, like
exactly.
today, as an example, I was at Target and I noticed Israel was like, he was having this huge emotional reaction because maybe, and I'm not sure if I do this and I intentionally, but I guess when I would go to Target, I would first go to the toys. And he was having this like huge emotional reaction because I went first to do my errands,
Mm,
first to the toys normally. But today I went to the errands and he was like, books, books, toys. And he was crying. I was like, I'm so
mm,
sorry. You're sad, baby, but we have to wait. We have to wait. Mommy has to get her things. It's mommy's turn. So I was trying all these things. And like, he was so devastated. And I was like, okay. Then I went through the physical. I was like, okay, he had a snack. He might be a little hungry. And then I was like, okay, it's nap time. Like it's really like I'm
right.
nap time, so he's probably really tired. But also, I think I'm breaking a cycle here where he's used to going to the toy.
Routine. Yeah,
I'm like, okay, there's like physical need, there's like emotional need, there's like the safety thing, right? So like maybe his safety thing, he's like, wait, we normally do this, but now we're doing this. Like, what's going on? You know, kind of
yeah,
thing.
yeah.
So, is that kind of what you're talking about?
Yes, absolutely. And you did all the like tips that you could have needed. Yeah, you did everything. I'm like responding to your hype. You did everything you could in that scenario. And I think that those situations are bound to happen where we break routine and they didn't get a nap or it's pushing nap time or they're super hungry, it's dinner time. And so to have these tools that are in place, it will help for in those situations where you're like, okay, what need isn't being met? And then you can stop and get curious.
I love that he repeats that theme in the book. Get curious, not furious. Get curious, not furious. It's like it's such a catchphrase that I think literally every parent, if you just ask yourself that question, like what's happening with my kid right now? Like why? What's the why behind the behavior? And I can always figure it out. Like, so we come back from Target, he goes on his nap, and then I had coaching clients today, and I put him in front of the TV because that's what I
Mm-hmm.
have to do. And I normally schedule it like on his naps and his um, bedtime, but this time I wasn't able to do it. So like
Right.
he was extra. He was like extra wanting my attention and extra um like a little mischievous. Like
Yeah.
he was kind of like like I'm gonna do this. It's kind of cute, like a little rebellious, and I'm like, I get it. I get it.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, oh man, this is so good. Lydia, when are you creating your course for parents? You must lead this movement, please. Like the healthy parent, not the gentle parent, the healthy parent movement. You must.
Yes,
Oh, you're so good at it. You're so good at it.
I'm honored you feel that way. Thank you. I have so much passion for giving children what they need and what they deserve and healthy upbringing and a healthy brain and an environment that they deserve. And so I would love to create a course. I'm thinking I would launch it within a year if I did do that. So yeah, I would
Let's
love to create
go. Let's go.
courses.
I will be your number one customer. I will be your number one customer.
Thank you, Haley. Hmm.
Oh
I'm honored.
man. Okay, well, so how can people find you? What are your links?
My
All
plugins.
yes.
Okay. You can find me on Teachers Pay Teachers at Lydia's Lessons. You can find me on Instagram if you want to just be friends. Hit me up. I post a lot of things with child psychology and with my daughter and what we're up to. And I'm homeschooling her now, so I post a lot about that. That's lydia.money on Instagram. And I also do photography if you want to hit me up on photos, see what I'm up to with that. Lydia's Lenses.
Oh my goodness. The Lydia Russell has just blessed us with her presence and her wisdom and her knowledge. I feel like I got a therapy session. I feel like I got a coaching session from this. Like I feel like edified. So thank you so much, Lydia.
Thank you. I'm so honored to learn from you and grow with you and just be your friend and see your motherhood journey. So thanks for the opportunity to be here with you.
Aw.